Hello and welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the Book of Revelations and Self-Empowerment. This is lesson number 2. I always pick these cards about a day in advance before I do the reading because I like to sit with them. I like to read the messages and I like to do the intuitive downloads or the spiritual downloads that come with it. I have the meditated messages that come with it. So, and that just takes a time. I like to sit there and look at the images and read the words and then take it from there. So I will introduce the cards right now. So this card, we have the Revolutionist. It's the champion of transformation, freedom fighter, pursuer of welfare justice. Okay, I will show you that. And in this particular image, we have a main player, a person, and then we have a group or people involved in the background. Okay, number 2 card is choice. And I'll show you this. We actually ended up having a choice card and a decision card. So this tells me that there is lots going on in this relationship and in your head about having to make some different choices and some different decisions. And you might have been sitting on this for a while. Okay, so I will read this card. Choice. You are being asked to make a choice that you've been struggling with. It is time to decide which path you are going to take. Listen to your intuition. Eliminate everyone else's input and feel your way into the choice that is right for you. The time is now. And now here is the second card. And so keep in mind, these 2 cards came out of 2 completely different decks. And to get a choice card and a decision card in the same reading when there's only about 5 cards drawn is almost astronomically impossible. Okay, so there is this card. Okay. And so I just want to make a mention of the Ganesha. Every time we see a Ganesha or an elephant, they are they break the road, the hurdles, or the blocked road wide open. They break room, they break the path into something new. So it kind of, any roadblocks get blown out of the way every time you see an elephant or a Ganesha. So the card 31, a decision. So this tells us that you are looking at decisions and choices, and it's going to be more than one. Okay, so we're going to jump over to this card. Okay, and this I'll show you. This is, just know you're always being watched by the divine, universe, God, so choose wisely. This results in judgment and karma. Okay, so in this particular reading, it's speaking of karmic lessons. Some lessons, life lessons had to be learned in this situation or this relationship, and I think you're there right now. You know what the problem is, and you know how to deal with the problem, and you've probably been sitting on it for a while, but you were very, very well aware choices and decisions, major ones, have to be made. And this is something you would have been contemplating for a while, especially when you see this revolutionist energy come up this card. Okay, and the second card is about saying no. So saying no is perfectly acceptable. The first time is always the hardest or the worst. Okay, so to me, when I look at this, this is a relationship that you've been in, and because you haven't been able to say no for various reasons. That's going to be a different reason for everybody. But saying no, meaning no, and holding your ground has been a problem. Or admitting to yourself that this is not a place you want to be. Saying, talking yourself into staying or being someplace that you really know deep down you don't want to be. And saying no. That is a difficult spot for a lot of people, so I've come to understand. It's not easy the first time. It's probably not easy the second time, but after the second time, it does become a lot more easier for your own self-preservation, if anything. Okay, so when I look at this card, this is the top of these 2 red cards, and immediately what jumps out is the 5. So 5s are always about change and transformation. So often change by nature, so it just sort of happens on its own, or it's change by conflict or change by challenge. And in this case, this is change by challenge. And so that was one of the first things when I just sort of looked at the cover of this card, is the 5 that jumped out, and wanting to manifest into a new cycle, a new part of life, a new style of life, or just doing something completely different, leaving the old one behind, leaving the struggles behind, leaving the challenges behind, saying no, I am not staying, no, I'm not going to be here, and no, I'm not going to be used, I'm not going to be a convenience, I'm not going to be a choice, and I'm not going to be hanging around here for something that's not fulfilling on an emotional level, okay? And looking for that peace, that harmony, that fairness, that balance in life. And that's something that's been lacking here for quite some time, I would say. So anytime you see this butterfly, the butterfly always indicates transformation and coming in and moving on to the next cycle, in and out. So I would say this particular relationship has outgrown itself by probably quite a few years, okay? So I'm just going to I will talk further about these as I go on into the reading, but there's a couple things I do want to mention here. So there was 3 particular songs that came up with this particular exact reading. So one is Broken Wing by Martina McBride. So these will have messages in there for you and it will have deep meaning, okay? And the next one is Careless Whisper by George Michael. And when this song came to me, this spells like a whole completely different story or multiple stories within one story, okay? So this can indicate third party energy that won't be for everybody. So this particular song, Careless Whisper, this would be probably initially when you got into this relationship, you would have thought it would be one way, would have played out a certain way, but that didn't happen. And so it would, you had expectations of something being completely different than what it actually turned out to be. Okay, so that will relate in one way, but in another way, there probably would have been somebody in your life at some point in your life that there would have been a really, really good bond or a good relationship, or there was, when they talk about being in harmony, being in step, that perfect match, that perfect mate, almost like that soulmate connection or maybe twin flame connection. There's that feeling in this reading. I don't know exactly where it belongs, but there is somebody there that you would have clicked with, or somebody would have had a whole completely different connection than the marriage or the common law partnership you're in. To me, when I look at this is about a karmic relationship, because these cards do speak of karmic cycles, karmic relationships, and having to learn karmic lessons in life or learn lessons in life. And I think this might have taken a little while to get through this process. Okay, so, and I also look at this card, as soon as I see this decision card, there would have been decisions, you probably have not been overly happy in this particular relationship for probably many years, but as soon as I see this card, it reminds me you stayed for the riches. There would have been money reasons or monetary reasons or assets or possessions is why you would have stayed for the money, stayed because of the money, or maybe being paid off, bought off, those kind of things. This almost reminds me of somebody who would have been a terrible partner, a terrible husband or wife, but they would have tried to make amends by buying you jewelry. When I see this thing, it's the first thing that jumps out of this card at me is the riches, the jewelry, the possessions, the money. So bad behavior was sort of backed by money. Bad behavior became acceptable because of money or possessions or assets in the end. And I think over time, that gets tiring, right? And people can't seem to understand you can't buy love. That's a feeling, that's an emotion that cannot be bought. But this person, whoever you were involved with, would have tried that. And you might have stayed for a number of months or a number of years, but then in the end, you probably realized that this can't carry on, because once that trust, that relationship, that love has basically dwindled away to nothing and there is no more trust, there's nothing left. And that kind of becomes that life lesson or that karmic cycle that comes to an end or a conclusion. And so this is why it says we have to make some decisions, and we have to make some choices. And you're looking at doing a complete revolution in life. Now, something else that might have been a factor here, in fact, I really think it is, when I look at this revolutionist energy, there's people in the background. So it's almost like, you know what, you knew what you wanted to do, but you might have been feeling a little bit forced or a little bit swayed, or people putting pressure on you to stay where you're at. Now, whether that be for spiritual reasons, religious reasons, or because of somebody's last name, or someone's worried about their reputation, or an out of control ego that does not want to let go, there would have been that swaying part. Some people trying to encourage you or force you to stay someplace you don't want to be. But on the flip side of that, there would have been a handful of people, and I wouldn't say a whole bunch of people know about this, but there probably is a trusted few friends or maybe family members who are in the back who are cheering you on to complete this karmic cycle, put an end to it, and get into a better life and lifestyle. Because it's a freedom card, an act of freedom, looking for freedom, creating that revolution in life. So again, you'll have supporters trying to help you get out of this particular situation or relationship, and then you're going to have those who are trying to retard it or stop it or talk you out of it. And for the most part, whoever you're involved with, I can see there's a power control struggle here. So this would be somebody who has got a very out of control ego, and they're more worried about their reputation and what others see or think of them than actually the relationship that they would have been in with you. For the most part, I think it's kind of like a showpiece, a showcase. Look at me in the public, but it's a complete disaster behind closed doors. There's, like I said, there's control, power issues, and a domination problem comes through here for me. Someone trying to dominate how you live, how you act, how you're seen. It's like by order and demand and command kind of thing. When I see this, it's like somebody has been trying to control your life for probably many, many years. What you can do, what you can't do, what the expectations. There would have, put it this way, there would have been not a lot of emotional ties. So it would have been, you would have probably felt more like a tool and being used than anything. Not a spouse, not a friend, not a partner. It would have, that the emotional link or the emotional attachment, there was none. There is no emotional connection. So lots of times when you see people who have an over ego or an ego based personality, it's all about me, myself, and I, and there's not a lot of thought or consideration that goes towards the other person, the spouse, the girlfriend, or the common law partner. They're worried about themselves. So in that case, there usually is no love connection. So there probably would not have been a lot of emotion directly towards you. Like you would not felt love. They probably would have had a difficult time saying that they love you, or if they did, it was just for purpose. So just take that as it lands. That might not be for everybody, but that's coming through strong and clear here. Okay. Just there's no emotional connection. They're very detached. That's the word I'm looking for. A very detached relationship, no emotional connection, no emotional support of any kind. No connection. They would see you as, like I said, a tool or just to be used, or as their convenience. As their convenience. That's a good way to put it. Just an attachment or an arm's length of themselves, right? Again, it's a very, very cold. A relationship that kind of worked one way, very cold one way. You would have been the one doing all the giving, and they would be doing all the taking. And they would expect by order and conformity. And, I actually had this conversation. Anytime there's somebody giving orders or directing orders or commanding and then expecting conformity, when I had that discussion with this one person, I said, basically what you're describing is jail or prison. That's not a relationship. That's not a marriage. And as soon as I said that to them, I think the light bulb went off. That is not normal. Right? It's equal give, equal take, and respect should be given to both sides, both parties. And over a time, and any kind of relationship or marriage or common law, there should be some mutual love or caring back and forth. In this case, there's none. Like I can see that right now. This is somebody who would feel that they could buy you in any way, shape, or form. Their actions and their words and their mouth. It doesn't matter what they say or what they would have done. They would have just bought you something in order to make up for what they've done, but they have no intention of changing. And I think you've come to realize that. And so when I also look at this card, this is about choices and struggling with something that, do I stay, do I go? There's not an indication of children here, but for some of you, I'm sure there will be. Okay. When I look at this, there's a person standing out in the middle of the water. And to me, when I look at that particular image, it reminds me of the Eight of Cups, walking away from something that's no longer serving positively, walking away from something that's no longer emotionally fulfilling. But I don't think there was a lot of emotional connection there to start with. You might have thought it should have been one way when you first got together or first got married or moved in together, but that was certainly not the case. It actually went the other way. And so this is always saying the universe and God is always watching you too, right? So it's watching you going through these struggles and making these decisions, knowing right from wrong. And so it's like, when you make that final decision, then you're going to be blessed with karmic rewards. It gets a karmic reward card and karmic consequences. So the longer you stay in this karmic cycle or marriage, the consequences get a lot worse over time. Okay. So that's what it talks about, the life lessons being learned. Okay. and saying no. So again, this might have been a power struggle saying no. So you might have felt that you might not have been able to say no, or don't dare say no because of the power control issues going on in this relationship. So that is something else, another life lesson that we all have to learn, is saying no is perfectly acceptable, right? And this is not being a child. This is not being treated as a child when it's a marriage or a relationship, at adults, right? Saying no, there's nothing wrong with that. And saying no is for self-preservation, of course. We have to remember that. And having healthy boundaries. That there has been no healthy boundaries in this relationship, I would say, probably from the word go. It got into something that you would have thought would have been one way, and it completely went sideways the other way into a very unexpected result or end. Okay, and something else with the person who is the control person, who's got the power control issues, who wants to be dominating or domineering. Something to be said about this person. This person would have probably an out of control ego, an over ego. They're worried about their fame or their public reputation over anything else. That's the most important thing. Me, myself, and I, and how I would look to the general public. Now, when we have that particular behavior or character in a person, most often it is exactly the opposite. It's because they have no self-confidence. They have very low self-esteem. They are severely, severely insecure. Because, why do I say that? Because really, if they were confident, they had lots of self-confidence, they were totally secure in life, and they had high self-esteem, they would not be acting the way they do. They do this to protect. They do this because it's a lack of all these things. Because if you really had that high self-esteem and confidence, you wouldn't be in that controlling mentality, right? So lots of times you can see when people are like that, that will always stem back into wherever they were raised or whatever they were around as they were growing up. That always reflects back to the home or their environment in some way, shape, and form. So just something to think about, because I've seen that behavior over and over, okay? Again, so this is coming to saying no to staying in this relationship and being okay with it. For some reason, I can't really get the thing when if you were to say no or decline to this person you're with, they would lay a guilt trip on you or have a temper tantrum. And again, this, I would say, for the most part, would be mental and emotional abuse, and playing mind games, okay? Again, for that ultimate control. Again, if it's something to think about, if you think about into the past what was going on with this person, every time they have an over-ego and ego trip, if you think about what I just said about having a lack of confidence, a lack of self-esteem, being insecure, go back and think about maybe some situations that may have taken place over the last 2, 3, 4, 5 years, and think about the opposite. If they're acting in a negative way, why would that be? What would be the motivation behind it? Again, if they were confident, they wouldn't be acting the way they are. If they had high self-esteem, they wouldn't be acting the way they are. If they weren't insecure, they would not be acting out the way that they are. Okay, and chances are this person with the overego, they would probably not only tend to want to control you or dominate you, but it would be others in the group or whoever they're around. So maybe they have superficial friends that can spill over into those areas as well. Okay. Again, this is somebody in a nutshell who figured that they could probably buy you with all the money, their riches, or give you things just to make up or for their bad behavior, their bad words. Okay, so mean words, controlling words, bad behaviors, emotional, mental abuse. And they can throw you a few dollars and that should make it okay. It's not okay. And eventually it does get tiresome and you get tired of it, right? Okay, and so over this time, I'm going to say this has probably gone on and probably in excess of, this can be like 5 years, in excess of 5 years, right? But again, that when it talks about the life lessons being learned, that is something you've outgrown this person, right? Most people don't often grow together. That's a very, very common thing where one partner will outgrow the other by maturity or those kind of things. The person who is the control person or the overego person, that tends to be a very low vibrational person. They tend not to grow as fast as people who are not, right? So that's inside work. You cannot, and if you're staying thinking you're going to help this person or try fix this person or make this person better, that's not going to happen. That is an inside job for all of us. And if they try to tell you that you do that for them, you need to help me, no, you don't. No, you don't. That's an inside job. You cannot help somebody else be a better person. You can teach them how to help themselves, but you can't do it for them, right? And for some reason, I seem to think that you might feel that you took on this responsibility, trying to help this person, trying to make this person a better person, or act better, or behave better, or try build their self-confidence up. But what the other person doesn't understand is, for all of us, and that's not being indicating or pointing fingers at anybody, but that is all our own personal individual jobs. Someone else cannot do that as per individual. So this person needs to do a lot of inner work to overcome these issues or these areas in life. Okay, we all make our own selves, our individual selves, better by our own shadow work. And that's what they call about shadow work, right? Those kind of dark spots, like insecurity is one of them. That's something we all have to overcome, and then we all have those shadow spots in life that we need to work with and deal with. Okay? You are not responsible for another adult. They are responsible for themselves. And again, it doesn't take, after this goes on for so long, it doesn't take long to outgrow this person, outgrow this relationship, and then what's left? Pretty soon, your money doesn't mean nothing, because money does not buy the important things in life. It does not buy good emotions. It does not buy good behavior. It does not buy respect. It does not buy accountability. It does not buy love. All those important, basically, values in life, money cannot buy. Those things are all earned, And unfortunately, when a lot of damage is done in relationships, you'll never recover that. Like a mutual respect or a public respect or respect for that person after it's lost is very, very, very rarely ever regained. Once the damage is done, the damage is done. Or if a trust is broken, once the trust is broken, very rarely is that ever rebuilt. And I think you might have come to realize that. And, we all have our different levels and different lines of tolerance, what we're going to tolerate before we're ready to put an end to it. I've learned my lesson, and I'm not tolerating this anymore. It's time to move on. This has got major choices, major decisions. Like I said, it's very rare that two cards of the same would come out of completely two big decks. But we have that. So you're looking for a complete revolution. You're looking for a new start. This can involve legal and law matters. So it might be filing for separation, divorce, or those kind of things, because we do have a justice card here. But being set free. And again, you couldn't get a better card than the Ganesha for freedom and removing roadblocks and hurdles and issues. Like blowing that road wide open clean. So she's freewheeling, free sailing from now on. And again, another transformation card. Butterflies are always about transformation. This card is about the champion of transformation. So again, this can be multiple layers, multiple choices, multiple decisions that are going to lead to walking away from something that's it's served its purpose. It's worn out. It's an old pattern that needs to go. This would have been a very difficult relationship. Now, apply that accordingly to everybody, because this is a different story for everybody. But here's the neat thing. To me, I like seeing this. This is a rough ride. This was a rough kind of life education, a rough life lesson, a very rough relationship. But what comes out is, why do I like this? Because she's change time. She's choice and decision time. We're putting it into, we're moving on to something new, something better. Someone pushed you too far. And this has just come to a close. So that's the good part about it. And saying, no, I'm not staying here, right? No, that's okay to say no. We all need to learn that. That's a life lesson for all of us as individuals. Like I said, saying no, I did not realize over time, talking to so many people, it's such a difficult little 2-letter word, but it holds so much power once you are able to say no and stand firm in your boots. Okay, and with that being said, and so there's something that I really wanted to name this reading. I wanted to write it down, because as soon as I looked at it, and I thought, oh, this is just perfect. You will never break my will or my dreams. And the last song I want to say about this, after this is completely put to bed and put an end, there's another song that came out by ELO, and that's Electric Light Orchestra, and it's Hold On Tight to Your Dreams. And again, this is somebody who would probably forced you to want to serve them with their interest, and the hell with yours. And so there would have been interest and dreams that you would have wanted to chase, or your passions and your drive going in a completely different direction, what your partner would have wanted. And that would have been something he or she would have been trying to talk you out of. As in, you should serve them, or they should come first. And really your dreams or desires or passions or interests really didn't matter. And again, that's another part of an abusive relationship, as you know, you are your own person. You're not a length of them, right? You're not their tool, you're not their slave, and you're not to be enslaved to somebody else. Those days are over. And so again, very, there would have been dreams and passionate things or past or your interests you would have wanted to chase, but for some reason it would not have been really overly supported by the person you're with. But when you break free, then you can chase your passions, your dreams, your desires, your interests. And again, that's a complete revolution. So we have like many, many choices. And like I said, there could be children involved. Some of you there will, but some there is not. And again, this is walking away, a choice of walking away to something better. A decision, I'm not going to accept the riches and money or being basically paid off for bad behavior, making bad behavior by money. That does a lot of serious damage, right? It's a total misconception of what a relationship should be. You can't buy a spouse. You can't buy a relationship. You can't buy love. You can't buy respect. You can't buy accountability. You can't buy trust. Those virtues cannot be bought and they must be earned. And if they're not earned, well, they usually tend to become short-lived. Anyway, so again, those 3 songs, ELO, Hold On Tight, and it's To Your Dreams, The Broken Wing by Martina McBride, Careless Whisper by George Michael. And again, there's going to be, for some of you, not all of you, there is going to be some sort of third party involvement. So it doesn't necessarily mean third party affair, but there's going to be somebody in the background, somebody from the background that would have meant a lot to you. And I kind of get, it might have been somebody where you might have been in a relationship with that would have been a total perfect connection emotionally and respectful boundaries. And you might have thought that this should be that, but this is not that at all. And so this can link to somebody you maybe knew in the past, or it can be somebody that's in just third party, just outside this relationship. And it might have taken the relationship with this third party to realize, what the hell am I doing here? I'm not enslaved to anybody. And the days of slavery and being enslaved, those are long over by decades, okay? That's not a relationship. And again, sometimes it just takes a while to filter through this. And I always just say, listen to that gut feeling. Your instant emotion will give you the answer if you pay attention to that. If something happens and it makes you upset, that should be your key. The light bulb should go off. Why do I feel like this? Why do I feel upset? Why do I feel sad? Why do I feel angry? Those initial impulses of emotion should give you the clue that something is not quite right there. And when that does, then the light bulb should go off as to why. There's something not right here. And it's such an easy message, but a lot of people try to bury that. Okay, so that being said, this will conclude our reading. So this is a very, very revolutionary, very, very highly transformative. A lot of transition going on here, and there's going to be multiple major choices going on here, but I can see somebody's walking out of this and moving on to something better. Again, you can see this person walking right in the middle of the stream, walking away. And I can tell by these cards you've been thinking of doing this for a long time and learning to say that little word no. Try it once, twice. After you do it the second time, it becomes much easier, and it's very, very self-empowering. When this goes on, and you finally learn your lesson, that becomes very, very self-empowering, and it builds up your confidence. It builds up your self-esteem, and it builds up being very, very secure in your life. Those insecurities will be gone. It opens up new paths, new roadways, and you'd be surprised when you're ready to make this decision, move on to something better. The universe will come in and give you rewards and karmic rewards, okay? So with that being said, that will totally complete our reading for today. And I hope you enjoyed this reading because, the book of Revelations and self-empowerment, this is lesson number 2. You will never break my will or my dreams, okay? And so if you like my content, my reading, please subscribe and share and click the bell icon as well. And also, if you're interested, on my YouTube channels, I have Midnight Bisous Tarot. This is YouTube. Seventh Heaven Junk Tour. That's also on YouTube. Soup to Nuts Astrology, Health and Anatomy. I'm also an astrologer, actually, by trade. And I have a couple Facebook groups, Midnight Bisous Tarot and Oracle. So Bisous is Bisous. And Midnight Bisous, C'est la vie astrology, jump into its rhythm. So that's my astrology group on Facebook. And again, click subscribe if you like, and click the bell icon. And also, if you're interested, I do have an Etsy shop, Midnight Bisous Tarot and Oracle, and eBay, Midnight Bisous Tarot, Oracle, and Astrology. So until we talk again, stay happy, stay healthy, take care of yourself, and take care of each other. Bye for now.